Hello, welcome. This is Barry Dunlop at Hashgraph Video. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to go with a really big subject at the present moment in time, and the one that seems to be on everybody's lips is Hashgraph really a blockchain killer? I'm not sure how many arguments have broken out online about this subject, but I know for a fact that we're certainly see some of them on our channel, and this is just a flavour of them if we look at some of our recent comments. I've given, if you like, both sides of the argument. On one side, we have people who are suggesting if Hashgraph is patented and owned, it won't be soon. It will be soon bought, owned, and run by the central bankers. On the other hand, you have people saying blockchain tech is definitely over, but that won't happen overnight, so everybody can sleep soundly for the next 700 days. I imagine that individual believes that it'll be a gradual overtaking by other technologies, possibly Hashgraph. I'm going to put my own 2 pennies in there, or my own 2 cents in. I'm not sure that actually having an argument between whether Hashgraph is better or blockchain is better is really relevant at the moment, because for most people looking at this argument, it's all about cryptocurrency. Hashgraph doesn't have a cryptocurrency. Hashgraph doesn't have a coin, and we're not even sure if it ever will. I mean, I for one hope that they will, but it could be some time, and it may well even be a year or 2 in the future before that happens. Possibly then, and that will be interesting to see, we can actually have a fair comparison. But today, I'm just going to go through some of the links and resources I found online, and I'm going to try and give what I will call an almost impartial guide to that particular subject, Hashgraph or blockchain. A lot of the noise that you're hearing at the moment has been kicked off by one video in particular, and I have to congratulate this gentleman. It's Mike Maloney, who I admire immensely and like what he has to say on a lot of different subjects. And he did a video just, I think, about 12 days ago, part of his hidden secrets of money, and it's from Bitcoin to Hashgraph. Now, if you haven't seen the video, I'm not sure where you've been, but you certainly should take the time to watch it. It's a rather long video, and if you want to shorten the watching time, you could just start at around 40 minutes, because that's when Mike starts to talk about Hashgraph in a bit of detail, and he's very excited about it. You can see he's had a lot of views, 265,000, something that guys like me, just humble YouTubers like me, would dream of, and a significant number of thumbs up, and of course he's had some thumbs down, which seems to, if you like, reflect what people are saying in the market at the present moment in time. In fact, actually, personally, I'd say there's probably been more thumbs down that I've come across than thumbs up, but then I've probably been looking for the contrarian viewpoint. I would also recommend one other video to you, and it's a really excellent summary. In fact, the gentleman who I do not know personally, but I do like what he says, Brandon, who runs a YouTube channel called the Bitcoin Investors Club, has made a somewhat shorter video that details things other than Hashgraph, but he actually just recently, after he'd actually seen Maloney's video, decided to sell his Bitcoin, or to at least get out of one of the positions he had in Bitcoin. He does a very good explanation, possibly in some respects a better explanation than what Mike did, about why, if you like, in his opinion now, Bitcoin is flawed. But again, coming back to what I said, or should have said at the beginning, comparing blockchain with Hashgraph is a little bit like comparing apples with oranges, in my opinion, because you're not comparing like with like. And I will give credit here to one of my favorite websites, hackernoon.com, who also, like many websites, have been reviewing Hashgraph. And they obviously make the point that I'm also making, which is that currently Hashgraph has yet to release concrete technical details for its deployment as a public ledger. Right now, it's a private ledger. And running a private ledger is a totally different kettle of fish, if you like, to running a public ledger. So it will be interesting to see what happens in the future. One of the big pluses, and one of the things you'll hear a lot of people saying about Hashgraph, is how fast it is. But of course, it's fast on a private ledger. And in this particular example, there's other private ledger examples out there. For example, IBM Hyperledger, 700 transactions per second. Red Belly, who I have to admit I'd never heard of, 400,000 transactions per second. And of course, that's significantly more transactions than Bitcoin or Ethereum, which they claim as much as 10 transactions per second. I think most people say it's a bit less than that. Either way, it's not very fast. And obviously, if it was to cope with the increasing use, it would need to find a way to have more transactions, which of course is why we're having so many discussions of forks and also why so many new cryptocurrencies are coming out. I personally will go on record. I'm not going to say that Bitcoin is dead. I think it will evolve, and it may evolve into a different type of currency to what we have right now. And I think it probably will need to. And it'll be interesting to see what happens along the way. One other, and because I'm just going to, as I say, be almost impartial, one other article I did read that I thought was very fair-minded. Investinblockchain.com, I recommend them. They had a good article again. Does blockchain have competition? Invest in blockchain. Well, I think you can't involve is the name of their website, I should say. Hashgraph is competition of sorts, but it isn't competition in one area, which they make the great point. Blockchain is still king in the land of cryptocurrencies. Of course it is, because right now Hashgraph doesn't offer a cryptocurrency. But it's a point that I would think has got some validity and acknowledge. There is one other one that I see repeatedly mentioned, which sort of goes back almost to my comment at the beginning, or one of the comments I highlighted at the beginning, is the fact that Hashgraph has a patent and is not open source. This is an article written by somebody called Asanya on Medium. And apparently he was a fan of Hashgraph for about a week and then just changed his mind. A great little article. I love the way he writes, and I like the way he's put his argument forward. And I think I've also heard the argument made that blockchain is like Linux and Hashgraph is like Microsoft. So again, it's this public versus private. Now, I think I've given a fair amount of the arguments against Hashgraph, which I think are unfair, simply because Hashgraph doesn't have a currency. But that said, I've said what people are saying about it and why they think it will not be, if you like, the blockchain killer that some people are suggesting it is. If you're new, and I get emails and I get Twitter messages asking me about this, how can I find out about Hashgraph? As far as I'm aware right now, I have yet to discover a Learn Hashgraph course, but I'm sure they'll come soon. But I did find an infographic that I really did think was, it summarized basically everything you need to know about Hashgraph, and it's on the CuriousEconomist.in, which I believe is an Indian website or is an Indian domain name. It's a great little website. I wish I'd actually thought of the Curious Economist, because I think that possibly is all of us. Anyway, it does a great summary of what blockchain is and also what Hashgraph is and what the differences are. I'm not going to go into any great details, but if you go to that particular URL, you will find their infographic, and I recommended you do what I did, which is print it off and study it. In fact, I actually found it a far better learning tool than I did with the various videos which I have here on YouTube, or at least a good complement, I should say. I split their infographic into 3 sections, and they make the comment at the end that Hashgraph is a significantly superior distributed ledger. It is a system without the shortcomings of blockchain. And I think that is certainly true. And they also, again, make the point that it's 250,000 plus transactions per second versus, they say, 7 for blockchain. Again, I agree, wonderful. But please remember, private versus public ledgers. I'm going to try and summarize now, because I think despite everything that we're saying here, because I think we're getting caught up in an argument, is Hashgraph going to kill blockchain or not? And I think there might be other things that you may need to worry about more than Hashgraph. Certainly if you're somebody who's committed to the blockchain or Bitcoin. And that is, I think, the most 2 worrying trends I think most people are acknowledging and discussing at the present moment in time. One is that proof of work, which is the basis of the blockchain, is very costly. It uses a lot of electricity and starting to use more and more electricity. This article is from The Guardian. It says that the Bitcoin mining consumes more electricity a year than Ireland. I've seen it same said about Denmark and various other countries. Truthfully, it does use an awful lot of electricity. That said, I've had plenty of people point out the other side of the story, which is that fiat currency also takes an awful lot of power and electricity. If we think about the carbon footprint of all those security lorries going around with cash in them and all the cost of banking and protection and all the rest of it, those are significant costs, and all the employees concerned. I'm quite certain that in terms of energy, it could well be a comparable cost. So that, you know, I put it in there because it's the one argument that's been used by the people who are so anti-blockchain and especially anti-Bitcoin are putting out there. Personally, I acknowledge it. I think it's something you should be concerned about. But I think the next thing for me personally is the more concerning thing. And that is that most of us who came aboard with Bitcoin and especially the blockchain joined it because it was decentralized. That was what gave us that was the big aha moment for so many of us. And that's what got us so excited. But just of late, I think people are starting to acknowledge, especially, that the miners are controlling a lot more than maybe we thought they did. For example, according to bitcoin.co.uk, the top 3 Bitcoin mining pools control 54% of the total pool distribution. That's a significant amount of power and control. So is that democratic? I would put it to that's not as democratic as possibly we originally had hoped for. And I think it's not going to get better anytime soon. Potentially, some of the forks that have been suggested will fix the problems, or at least kick the can down the road a little bit longer before it becomes a problem. But anyway, if I was talking about an argument, it wouldn't be against blockchain and against Bitcoin. This would be the argument I would use. It wouldn't be the argument that Hashgraph is going to beat it, because as we've already acknowledged, Hashgraph doesn't have a currency. So in summary, will Hashgraph eventually beat blockchain, or will blockchain beat Hashgraph? My personal opinion is the same as Stephen Hawking. He's a great little quote from him, and I like my quotations. Only time, and I like the way Stephen puts it, whatever that may be, will tell. Frankly, folks, only time will tell. Wherever you are today in the world, I hope you're having a great day. We would love to hear more from you. We'd like to know what you think of our videos, positive and negative. And your comments are especially welcome. If you have questions about Hashgraph or even anything crypto related, please ask them in the comments below, or you can email them to us at ask@hashgraphvideo.com. Again, if you're with us and you're enjoying the journey, please consider following us on Twitter, Instagram, and of course, subscribing here at YouTube. We would really love to have you on this journey with us. Again, wherever you are in the world, have a great day, enjoy life, and be happy. Thank you very much.